Hey guys, I'm back with another comparison video. Today we are comparing some palettes with the new Pat McGrath Celestial Divinity palette. I have already done swatches of this palette and I've shared some thoughts on this palette. It was my previous video. If you haven't checked it out, then go ahead and check it out. In this video, I'm going to compare this Pat McGrath palette with some of the other Pat McGrath palettes I have, and we will see if any of the shades in the existing palettes are there in the Divinity palette. I know many of you are interested in a video like that, and I'm also going to compare the palette with the ABH palette, the Aina palette. This is one of my one of my most favorite palettes. I think you guys know that. And yeah, I want to compare this one with the Celestial Divinity, because the first time I saw the Celestial Divinity palette and I was seeing the colors, I thought of skipping on the Pat McGrath palette because I felt like there is some similarity to the ABH palette. And recently I saw someone post on Instagram as well the comparison swatches. I think it was Jen Phelps, if I'm not wrong. And yeah, some of the shades look very similar to each other, and that was my first opinion of this Celestial Divinity palette as well, and probably that's why I got it too, because those are the kind of shades I love. So we will see how the swatches compare on my kind of skin tone. So yeah, let's get started. We'll first do the Pat McGrath palettes, then we will go to the ABH Aina. Okay, first we'll take a look at this small cute little palette. This was the last year's holiday collection. This is called the Ecstasy Subversive, and it has these beautiful colors in here, just very small pan size, and I love this palette. The colors are really pretty. So let's see if we can find, I think the yellow is something very striking, so we'll compare that. Obviously the blue is not there in this palette. There is like a plummy shade here, and I don't see a plummy shade here. We have something like this, like an eggplant color, so I'll swatch that shade. There is a gold and there is a purple too, and there is like a more maroonish sort of a color, and there is a red in the palette. So they are not exactly the same, but I'll still swatch. So first we'll do this one. The plummy shade, you can see they are totally different colors. The Celestial Divinity is more of a deep eggplant color with a lot of black and purple eggplant tones, and it has a lot of sparkle. This one is a smooth metallic finish shade. No similarity there. I think the gold may be a little bit similar. Let's try. So this one is the smaller palette, which is smoother. I mean, both, that's a metallic shade, and this one is from the Celestial Divinity. And yeah, I think we can say that these two are pretty similar. This one is more smoother. This one has a little bit more sparkly tone, but yeah, on the eyes they may look quite similar. Let's swatch the purple. Both the purples do feel very similar to me. Both have that purpley, deep blue, blackened purpley tone, like a deeper shift. So this one is a smaller palette, and this one is the Celestial Divinity. Yeah, and both have sparkles. They're light pink, silvery sparkles. Okay, so this one, which is from the smaller palette, it's just a tad bit light, and the Celestial Divinity is a tad bit deep. And let's do this one with this red. Both do look pretty different. This is the smaller one, this is the bigger one. One is more muted, the smaller palette, more muted shade. The bigger one is more deep red tone and quite bright, and it has sparkles infused. So these are the shadows which can be compared in the two palettes, the Subversive Ecstasy and Pat McGrath Celestial Divinity. Okay, next we have this palette, which is the Ritualistic Rose palette. Okay, now from this palette, I would say there is not many similarities in the Celestial Divinity palette, but still I will show you some swatches. Firstly, this color right here, which is a light gold, and it's a little bit chunky, but it does smooth out quite easily. And here we have a light pale gold in the Pat McGrath Celestial Divinity. We can also swatch this one, which is also like a gold color with a little bit of a green tint. So this one is the Ritualistic Rose. Ritualistic Rose palette has glittery shades. They are super sparkly and glittery, and these are the shades in the Celestial Divinity. The shades may look a little bit similar, especially these two, because both are pale gold tones, but this palette, the Ritualistic Rose palette, it's very sparkly. Then we have a pink tone here, and we can compare to this pink right here, which is also that pink gold shift. This is also a pink purple gold shift color, and these are the two shades. You can see how this color from this palette is super reflective, and it's just duochromatic, multichromatic. This one also has that same feel, but they are not the same. So this is the small palette. Look at that sparkle. And this is the big palette. Here are the shades. Both are similar looking, but they're pretty different. The shift in both of them are very different, and this one is super sparkly. Then we have this color right here, which we can compare with this one maybe, and this one. These are the two shades we can compare with. So this one is Celestial Divinity, and this one is, that one is Ritualistic, and these two are Celestial Divinity. Very different tones. This one is Ritualistic Rose. Again, very glittery and sparkly purple. This one, both of them are newer palette. This one is super sparkly. It has a slight shift to it. This one is lighter and has a different shift, and this one is more duochromatic with a little bit of a blue shift. So these shades are also totally different. And last but not the least, definitely is this one. This kind of a bronzy shade. This is one of my favorite shades to wear. This is super pretty. This kind of a shade is not there in the Celestial Divinity palette. So here are the swatches again. I wouldn't say there are many similarities between these shades. They are very different from each other. Okay, next we have this palette, the Platinum Bronze palette. This one, my packaging is a little broken, but yeah, the advantage is I can just open it like this now. Okay, so here we have these very cool bronzy colors for day-to-day use. Don't think you will find any similarities between these two palettes. Yeah, I have checked again. There aren't any similarities between these two palettes. This is a very cool tone, neutral, everyday friendly palette, and here we have a lot of colors, so I don't think there is any point comparing this one. Let's move on to the bigger palettes. Okay, so first of all we have the Bronze Seduction, one of my favorites. Okay, so from Bronze Seduction there are maybe two shades which are somewhat similar, not too many though, just two shades I would say. So let's go from the start. This kind of a matte, not there. This kind of a satin finish cream shade. It's a very nice cream shade. It's a highlight kind of a shade with a light gold tone. That is also not there. This is a more intense gold. Then we have a taupey sort of a color, taupey bronze, which is not here. Matte browns, not over here. The mattes in this palette are all warm brown and plums and pink. This is a reddish brown rather. This is more of a terracotta brown. Okay, then we have this color right here, which is a more coppery shade. This one doesn't swatch very well in mine. This one we can compare with this one. So this is a nicer copper color in the Celestial Divinity. So here is Celestial Divinity. And I think one more color we can compare is this one, which is also like a coppery shade, but it has more of a deeper tone, orangey tone. So both are from Celestial Divinity, and in between I have this one from Bronze Seduction. So this one is a very beautiful wearable color, although the texture of my palette, it's a little bit weird. I really have to dig in to get the product, but this is how it looks. The tones are quite different from each other, and the Bronze Seduction one has a lot of sparkles, so definitely These may look similar in the pan, but they are not. I think in the red we may find some similarity. So let's do the red. So Bronze Seduction, Celestial Divinity. This is how both the tones look like. The Bronze Seduction one has a slight bit of a berry hint, berry red sort of a color. This one is a more pure red orangey sort of a color. Let me swatch, let's see how it looks. This one is bronze and this one is a new palette. So both are very rich tones. Both have a very similar texture. The Celestial Divinity one also has a slight bit of sparkle infused, but as you can see the tones are similar, but they are not the same red. There's a slight difference. On the eyes they may look just a slightly different, maybe just because of the sparkles it will look just as, I don't think the difference will be that much though. Okay, next we have this shade which is that pink gold sort of a color, and in here I think we have this one only which has that quality, but they are not the same. The Bronze Seduction one is super sparkly and it is a more pink gold, rose gold sort of a flip. It has a lot of sparkles. You can see the sparkles. And the Celestial Divinity one also has a lot of sparkles, but the flip of gold is more pronounced in the Celestial Divinity one. So I think here also I wouldn't say there is a lot of similarities between both these palettes. Rest the two shades, I think there is no point comparing because there aren't any shades which are like this in the palette. Probably if you want we can compare these two, but they are not the same. This one is very high shine greenish blue sort of a color, and this one is more of a metallic shade. So here are both the shades. The essence may be similar, but the tones are pretty different. This one from Bronze Seduction is very sparkly and it's not that metallic as this one. You can see the Celestial Divinity one is a little bit more metallic than the Bronze Seduction. So those are the tones which are comparable in both of these palettes. Okay, next we have the Subversive palette. Such a good palette. This one I have done a video on this one too. There are two videos up on the channel if you haven't checked it out. So this is how the palette looks like. Now obviously this palette has 10 shades, this one has 18, and then I compared one which had 4 and one which had 5. Okay, so the number of shades are obviously different. Okay, so here I think not too many similarities are here too. The Subversive palette is a black, there is a light beige sort of a satiny color which was there in the other palette too, so I will not swatch because that kind of shade is not here in this palette. This is how the shade looks like. It's a very different texture. Then we have a plummy satin shade which is not here in this palette. Then we have a purple. This purple is very different in tones from the purple of this one. You wouldn't find a tone like this. Here we have very blue based violet sort of purple, this one, and very pinky purples. So this one is not there. Then you have a smoky color right here. Such a smoky color is not here. This is more blue with shimmers, blue black with shimmers. Here you wouldn't find. This one is more of a eggplant color. Okay, so just to show you both the shades, the textures are very similar, but this one from the Subversive is more blue black, this one is more black plum. So just to swatch it and show you, it looks very different on the eyes. So both are very different colors and both have sparkles. Texture is very similar as well. Okay, moving on, we have this blue violet color. It has a blue and purple shift. If I move the palette, you'll be able to see. This one is somewhat similar to this one, so let's swatch it. This one is Subversive and this one is Pat McGrath Celestial Divinity. So this one is, you can see, more blue purple. This one is more purple black. And we can swatch another one. which is I think this one. So that is also blue purple, but it's a different tone of purple. So this one is Subversive, and it has a lot of sparkle as all the big Pat McGrath palettes. This one also has a lot of sparkles. This one is Celestial Divinity, and this one also Celestial Divinity. If I move my hand, you'll be able to see why I chose this one, because it has a blue pink shift, blue pink purple shift. From where I'm sitting, this blue looks like a purple from my angle. Maybe it's not coming on the camera very clearly, but it has a blue purple shift. And this one is more of a black purple shift, deep blue black purple shift. So all the three colors are very, very different. Next we have a olive green in this palette too, and we have a olive green here as well. So let's swatch them. This is how both the olive greens look like. Here is Subversive. Again, very, very sparkly. That kind of sparkle is not there in the Celestial Divinity. Celestial Divinity is more metallic. I hope it's more clear now. You can see the sparkle in the Subversive one, and it's more olive green, and the Celestial Divinity one is a little bit more metallic and little less intense, more muted olive green. So again, those are different colors too. Then this one is like a white pink color, which is not here in this palette. And the last color which we can swatch is this pink one, which is also that pink gold shift. And we can swatch this one. Both of them look very, very similar. This is Subversive, this is Celestial Divinity. Both are very similar. I think they are exactly the same shade. Okay, maybe not exactly the same, but they are very, very similar. The Subversive one may be just a little bit more glittery if I have to like nitpick. Otherwise, I think both are very similar. Both have that subtle gold shift. So I think there is one shade which we can say which is very similar, is this one and this one in both the palettes. Okay, and lastly we do have to compare the ABH Jackie Aina palette for sure. So let's see how these two compare. This is how both the palettes look like. When I saw this the first time, I was instantly reminded of the Jackie Aina palette. I can see so many similarities, especially these two shades, one of my favorite shades from this palette. It's very similar, the red too. So let's start comparing. This is going to be very interesting. Let's do the mattes first. I think there are 3 mattes in this palette, and we will compare the 3 mattes. So let's do the Celestial first. They didn't swatch very nicely. Let me build them up. Anyways, you get the idea. Let's do the mattes of this Jackie Aina palette. Pink, berry, purple. The purple is not there in the Pat McGrath palette. And we have a brown, orangey brown, which is not there in the Pat McGrath palette. Then we have a deeper brown, which is very, very deep than the Pat McGrath palette. And we have a lighter brown, beige brown in the palette. So in the ABH palette you get so many matte shades, and in the Pat McGrath one you just get 3. Out of the 3 matte shades in the Pat McGrath palette, there are I think 2 mattes which are pretty similar. These two, this is a little bit deeper, that's all. And the brown is also pretty similar. This one is a little bit deeper. But the tones which you get in the Divinity palette, I think all of these tones are somewhat present in the Jackie Aina palette as well. Okay, so this palette has 14 shades. Out of them 7 are matte and the rest 7 are shimmers. And here you have almost 15 shades which are shimmers. So you get more shimmers in this palette, obviously. But let's see if the shimmers in this ABH Jackie Aina palette are somewhat similar to what we have here. So first of all, we have this shimmer, which is a champagne shimmer, which is not there in this palette, but I can still show you this color, which is somewhat similar, like a pale gold champagne color. So first we have ABH Jackie Aina, and then we have Pat McGrath. So these are the 2 shimmers which I think are pretty similar. Pat McGrath one has a little bit more sparkle, So this is how both the shimmers look like. I would say they're pretty similar. Then we have this rose gold kind of a shade, which is not actually there in the Pat McGrath palette. This is a very sparkly rose gold kind of a color, but I'll still compare it to something. So this is a sparkly shade. We know how many sparkly shades are there in the Pat McGrath one, but we can compare this to this one. Little bit different. This is totally like a warm toned coppery, light copper shade, coppery gold shade, very different tones. Let's move on to this red. I feel like many of you will be interested in this red. How do the reds compare? So this one is Jackie Aina. This is the Jackie Aina red. This is the Pat McGrath red. Oh my god, look at that intensity. Okay, so from the swatch also, it's very clear that the Pat McGrath one is super intense, but the Jackie Aina one is a little bit muted. It has a hint of brown, I feel. It is not like a true red, while this one also is not like a true red. It has a hint of orange. Both have that warmish sort of a undertone, but this one is definitely more intense, has a lot of sparkles. But honestly, I don't think on the eyes it is going to look that different. So that's the red. For the purple, we have a metallic purple right here in the Pat McGrath, I mean the Jackie Aina palette, and here we have this one. Obviously both are different, they are not the same, but I will just swatch it. This is Jackie Aina, very metallic purple, bright purple with blue tones, and the other one is also a same sort of a color, similar sort of a color like this, with purple with blue tones, but this is much deeper and has a lot of sparkles. Okay, so this one is going to look a little bit different on the eyes. Okay, now this whitish olive green sort of a color, this one is like a white with a green flip. This sort of a color, it's so beautiful color, that's not here in this palette. Okay, so next one is this olive green, obviously beautiful color, but I love the olive green of the Celestial Divinity because it's a little bit more deeper. Okay, swatching it again. Jackie Aina first, which is that olive green, it's on the lighter side, and then we have the Pat McGrath, which is also an olive green but more deeper, more olive green tones. There you go. So this one is Jackie Aina, which is more subtle. This one is more olive green. So they are not the same. They may look similar in the pan, but they are not the same. Next we have this beautiful shade. I think this is going to be quite similar. The shade Sponsored, the very popular shade Sponsored, and the Pat McGrath shade. Look at that. I think they are very similar. I will swatch them here. This is Jackie Aina and this is Pat McGrath. Okay, so they are similar, I would say. This one has a slight bit of blue as well. This one doesn't have any blue tones. This is more of a green, gray, brown tone, like a oil slick kind of a tone, and this one has a little bit of purple as well along with this. So there is a slight bit of difference. I didn't think that these two shades will have a difference. Let me swatch it here also. Yeah, so yeah, there's a slight bit of difference between both these shades. They look so similar in the pan, but you can see that this one has a slight lavender tone. Okay, so these two are also not exactly the same. They are similar in certain angle. They look exactly the same at a certain angle, but if you shift and move your hand, they are not exactly the same. Yeah, they're same but not same. That's what I have to say about these two shades. And then of course we have this one. This is one of my favorite shades of all time, Lituation. This sort of a shade is not there in this palette. So if I have to recommend this palette, oh my god, this is such a good palette. If you don't care about too many shimmers, you can get the essence of this one in this, except this one doesn't have a lot of pinky shimmers, just one, but you will get an essence of this one in this. So you can also go for this Aina palette instead of this one. This is obviously more affordable, less expensive than this one, but the difference isn't much also, because this is also not as expensive as other Pat McGrath palettes. So yeah, those are the swatches. That's the comparison one more time. So that's it guys, that's my comparison of the Celestial Divinity palette with the Aina palette and the other Pat McGrath palettes. I will keep them here as well. I hope this video was helpful and you liked it. If you have any other questions or if you want anything else for this palette or any of the other palettes, then just let me know. I will be happy to do that video. If you like this video, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and if you are new here, I really hope you will consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again really soon in my next video. Bye.